Two teenage boys kicked out of car dealership. Next day, their billionaire dad shows up with 5 Rolls Royces. Two teenage boys walked into a luxury car dealership wearing combat shorts and plain white t-shirts. Their old bikes clattered outside as they stepped inside, faces full of wonder and hope. They didn't touch anything. They only wanted to admire, to see if their dreams could stretch just a little further. One boy pointed at a midnight blue hypercar with a price tag over $900,000. "That's the one," he whispered to his brother. But before they could get any closer, a salesman appeared, sharp suit, cold eyes, and a sneer that didn't reach his lips. "I think you're in the wrong place," he said, voice low but dripping with contempt. The boys barely had time to react before the salesman stepped forward and, with a dismissive gesture, told them they needed to leave. "Come on, boys. This isn't for you." His tone was heavy with judgment, like he was sending them away for being invisible. Laughter bubbled up from the nearby staff and a few customers. The salesman's eyes flicked with a mix of irritation and superiority as he motioned firmly toward the exit. The boys' hearts sank. They felt exposed, humiliated. The younger one's hands trembled slightly. The older swallowed hard, cheeks burning. Without a word, they allowed themselves to be escorted out, each step heavier than the last. Their dreams hadn't changed, but in that moment, the world made it clear where they stood. Outside, they slumped against the dealership's cold wall, silent but broken. What the showroom didn't see was the quiet power waiting at home. The next morning, 5 Rolls Royces rolled up silently to the dealership. The same boy stepped out of the lead car, confident this time, followed by their father, a billionaire in a tailored suit. The salesman who had pushed them out looked stunned, his arrogance replaced by disbelief. He never saw it coming. Because sometimes, those you judge the quickest hold the greatest power. The morning air was crisp, carrying a quiet hum that broke the usual calm of the luxury car dealership. Inside, the showroom was just beginning to stir, staff arranging displays, polishing surfaces, chatting about sales targets and new models. Then, 5 Rolls Royces appeared in perfect formation, gliding smoothly into the lot. They weren't just cars, they were statements, sculptures on wheels worth more than most people's entire lives. All eyes turned instantly. Phones were raised. Staff froze mid-conversation. The quiet authority of these cars filled the space with a new kind of energy, awe, respect, and a hint of fear. The front door opened, and from the lead car stepped out the same teenage boy from yesterday, the one who had been shown the door like an intruder. But this time, his posture was different, tall, steady, confident. Behind him came their father, every inch the picture of success. Tailored navy suit, calm expression, eyes sharp but kind. His presence was magnetic, not because of money, but because of quiet power. The salesman who had kicked them out the day before stood near the entrance, frozen. The arrogance was gone. His jaw clenched, his eyes darted between the boys and the cars. He never expected to see this. The father didn't rush in. He walked slowly, as if savoring the moment. His son matched his pace, shoulders squared, head high. The entire showroom was watching. The father stopped just inside the door and looked around. His gaze settled on the salesman, the same man who had dismissed his sons like they were invisible. No words were spoken. No harsh accusations. Just a slow, deliberate nod. The salesman swallowed hard, unable to meet his eyes. Then the father gestured toward the 5 Rolls Royces, the rarest collection the dealership had ever seen. "Show me the cars," he said quietly. The staff scrambled to open doors and present the vehicles. Cameras clicked. Staff whispered. This was more than a visit. This was a message. The boys stood close, watching their father move through the showroom with ease. He stopped by the midnight blue hypercar, the very one they had admired the day before. He looked at it with a gentle smile. "A fine choice," he said to his son. The older boy's eyes glistened, a mix of pride and disbelief. The younger brother simply nodded, unable to hide the grin spreading across his face. The father turned back to the salesman. "My sons will be buying from you." The salesman's face flushed. "Of course, sir." But beneath his professionalism, the sting of his earlier judgment lingered. Later, when the father and boys left, the dealership staff whispered about the change they'd witnessed. Not just the arrival of wealth, but the transformation of respect and understanding. The father didn't flaunt his fortune. He didn't scold or shame. Instead, he showed everyone the power of presence, humility, and standing up for your family. For the boys, the moment was more than a victory. It was proof that dreams are worth chasing, that rejection doesn't define you, and that sometimes the world needs a reminder not to judge too quickly. As they rode away that day, the boys were different. Not because of the cars, but because of what they carried inside, hope reborn, and a quiet strength no sneer could ever erase. The roar of the Rolls Royce engines had barely faded when the boys and their father returned home. The sleek luxury cars gleamed under the morning sun, but what truly shined was the change unfolding inside those teenage hearts. Back in their modest neighborhood, the quiet house felt different, not because of wealth, but because something unspoken had shifted. It was a moment suspended between past wounds and future possibilities. Jordan, the older brother, was the first to break the silence. His voice was low but firm. "Dad, why didn't you just yell at that salesman? Tell him off? Make him regret what he said to us?" Their father looked at them both, eyes steady and kind. Sometimes, anger only feeds the problem, but showing up quietly, with confidence, without a fight, that speaks louder than words. You don't need to prove anything to anyone who doesn't already believe in you. Eli, the younger boy, nodded slowly, but it still hurt, hearing him say we didn't belong. "That's on him, not you," their father said. "People fear what they don't understand. They judge before they know. But you have to keep walking your path, no matter what." The boys absorbed this, the weight of their father's words settling deep. That afternoon, their father sat them down at the kitchen table, pulling out 2 leather-bound notebooks. "I want you to write," he said, "not just about cars or money, but about your dreams, your fears, and the kind of men you want to become." Jordan raised an eyebrow. "Right? Like school. Better than school." Their father smiled. "Writing is a way to understand yourself, to build your own story, not the one others try to force on you." The boys took the notebooks, unsure at first, then slowly, words began to flow. Days turned into weeks, and the notebooks filled. Stories of ambition, frustration, hope, raw and honest. Their father watched quietly, offering guidance only when asked, teaching them that true strength came from within. Meanwhile, the dealership incident stayed fresh in their minds. Jordan decided to reach out to the salesman via email, not to argue, but to invite a conversation. It was an act of courage and a test. The reply was brief, formal, and hesitant, but it was a start. When they finally met, the salesman was a different man. The arrogance was replaced by something quieter, maybe regret, maybe understanding. "I misjudged you," he admitted. "I saw only your clothes, not your character. I'm sorry." The boys accepted the apology, not because they needed to, but because forgiveness gave them power beyond the dealership walls. This moment became a turning point, not just for them, but for the entire team at the dealership. Management heard about it and began discussions about diversity and humility in their workplace culture. Back home, the boys' father organized a surprise, a visit to a local charity that helped kids from underprivileged backgrounds learn skills in engineering and design. "Cars are more than status symbols," he explained. "They're about passion, creativity, and hard work. You'll find joy in building, in dreaming, and in lifting others up." The boys volunteered, their hands greasy, their minds buzzing with new ideas and friendships. The lessons went beyond horsepower and price tags. About community, respect, and the real meaning of success. One evening, sitting on the porch, Jordan turned to Eli and said, "You know, maybe it's not about the cars at all. Maybe it's about proving we're more than what people see on the outside." Eli smiled. "Yeah, we're not just boys in shorts and t-shirts. We're the future." Their father joined them, nodding quietly. "Exactly. And the world will learn that soon enough." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over their neighborhood, the boys felt something new, a fierce pride born not from wealth or privilege, but from resilience and hope. The road ahead was still long. They would face more challenges, more judgments. But now they had a story to tell, not one written by others, but one they wrote themselves with every step, every word, every silent act of courage. And that story? It had just begun. The weeks following their visit to the charity program were some of the most intense the boys had ever experienced. Their lives, once simple and predictable, now felt like a whirlwind of new challenges, lessons, and emotions. Jordan and Eli were no longer just 2 boys dreaming quietly. They were boys with a purpose, fueled by the unexpected power of that morning at the dealership and the steady guidance of their father. But purpose doesn't mean the path is smooth. At school, whispers followed them. Some classmates envied the sudden attention they received. Others doubted their sincerity, calling it rich kid drama. Jordan kept his head down, focusing on his writing and projects. Eli struggled more, his confidence shaken by the judgment that didn't vanish with the Rolls Royces. One afternoon, as they sat in their small backyard, Eli finally broke down. Why do people still look at me like I don't belong? We have the cars now. Doesn't that mean something? Jordan put an arm around his brother's shoulder. It's not about the cars. It's never been. It's about who we are inside. And some people just don't want to see that. Their father overheard from the porch and joined them quietly. Eli, the world will always judge by what it sees first: clothes, cars, money. But real strength is proving them wrong every day. Not with words, but with how you live. He paused, then added softly, you have something even more valuable than cars or money: your character. That evening, their father invited them into his study, a quiet room filled with books and photos of people who had changed the world quietly but profoundly. Do you know who these men are? He asked, pointing to pictures of inventors, civil rights leaders, and entrepreneurs who had started with nothing but vision and grit. None of them were born into privilege like some people assume, he explained. They faced rejection, ridicule, and hardship. But they kept moving forward because they believed in something bigger than themselves. Jordan listened intently. So, you want us to be like them? Better, their father smiled. You don't just have to change your story, you can change the story for others. Over the next few days, the boys started planning a project inspired by their father's words, a community workshop where kids could learn about cars, engineering, and creativity regardless of background or money. It was an idea born from pain and hope, fueled by the memory of that humiliating day and the powerful comeback that followed. They pitched it to their father, who didn't hesitate to support them. He helped connect them with local sponsors and the charity where they had volunteered. The workshop became a beacon. Kids from all walks of life showed up, curious and eager. Some had never touched a wrench before. Some had never imagined a future beyond their neighborhood. Jordan and Eli became more than dreamers. They became leaders, mentors, and examples. One day, while teaching a group how engines worked, Jordan noticed the old salesman from the dealership walk in quietly, almost hesitant. The room fell silent. The salesman cleared his throat. I heard about what you're doing here. It's impressive. Jordan smiled but kept his tone calm. It's not about impressing. It's about changing. The salesman nodded slowly. I'm sincere. I've been thinking a lot about that day, about how I acted. I want to learn. To do better. Eli stepped forward, offering a handshake. Then start here. With us. That moment wasn't just about forgiveness. It was about growth for the boys, the salesman, and the community they were building together. As the workshop flourished, so did the boys. They discovered new talents and passions. Jordan found joy in design and storytelling, crafting not just cars but ideas. Eli developed a knack for mechanics, eager to build and fix, to bring dreams into reality. One evening, as they packed up tools, Eli looked at Jordan. You know, I think that salesman's right. We are changing something. Jordan nodded, the weight of the journey settling in. And we're just getting started. Their father watched from a distance, pride shining in his eyes. Not because of the Rolls Royces or the status, but because these boys were becoming the kind of men who could change the world. The journey ahead would have more challenges, no doubt. But with each step, each lesson, and each act of courage, they were rewriting their story, not as victims of judgment, but as architects of their own future. And that future? It was bright. The workshop was thriving. What began as an idea born from pain had blossomed into a vibrant community hub. Kids from all backgrounds came to learn, to dream, and to build, not just cars, but confidence and futures. Jordan and Eli had found purpose beyond their own story. The sting of rejection had transformed into a mission. To open doors for others who felt unseen, unheard, and underestimated. One afternoon, the boys sat in the workshop's quiet corner, surrounded by blueprints and half-assembled engines. The hum of activity, laughter, tools clinking, engines revving softly, filled the space like a heartbeat. Jordan looked at Eli, his voice steady. You know, this place, it's more than just about cars now. Eli nodded, wiping grease from his hands. It's about legacy. About making sure no one else feels like they don't belong. Their father appeared then, standing tall and calm as always. He carried a book, worn but well-loved, the kind that holds generations of wisdom. Legacy, he said, setting the book down, is not about what you leave behind in things, but in people, in the lives you touch. He flipped open the book, revealing photographs of his own childhood, stories of struggles and triumphs written in the margins. "You boys remind me of someone," he said softly. "Someone who started with nothing but a dream and a fierce belief that he belonged." Jordan's eyes widened. "That someone was you?" Their father smiled, a flicker of vulnerability breaking through. "In a way, yes. But I didn't get here alone. I had mentors, people who believed when no one else did. And that's why what you're building here is so important." The boys absorbed every word, feeling the weight of history settle on their shoulders in the empowering light of possibility. That evening, Jordan and Eli pored over plans for the next phase of their project, a scholarship fund for talented kids who couldn't afford the basics. They wanted to ensure that passion and potential were never limited by circumstance. As they worked, Eli paused. "Dad, do you think we can really change the world? One kid, one car, one workshop at a time." Their father looked at them both with unwavering confidence. "You don't have to change the whole world all at once. You just have to change one world, one life. And that's powerful enough." Meanwhile, the dealership where the boys had once been shunned was beginning to feel the ripple effects of their story. Word had spread about the workshop, the boys' initiative, and their father's quiet but undeniable influence. The manager called a meeting, determined to reshape the company culture. "We need to rethink how we see people," she said. "How we treat those who walk through our doors. It's not just about selling cars, it's about respect." The salesman who had once dismissed Jordan and Eli stood quietly in the back. His transformation was genuine, born from humility and a desire to learn. He approached the boys one day at the workshop, this time not as an adversary, but as a supporter. "I want to help," he said. "Teach me how I can be better." Jordan smiled. "You're already on the right path." Together, they began working on a program within the dealership and outreach to local youth, offering tours, internships, and mentorship. Back at home, the boys faced another test, not from the world, but from themselves. One evening, a heated argument erupted. Jordan, frustrated with the pressure and expectations, lashed out. "Sometimes I wonder if this is all worth it. The fights, the doubts, the judgment, it's exhausting." Eli, equally emotional, replied, "We're not just fighting for us, Jordan. We're fighting for every kid who's been told they don't belong." Their father stepped in, his voice calm but firm. "Growth is messy, painful, but it's necessary. The biggest battles are often within ourselves." He shared a story from his own youth, how he'd faced moments of doubt, times when giving up seemed easier. "But every time I chose to stay, to push through, I found strength I didn't know I had." The boys listened, absorbing the wisdom that only comes from experience. As months passed, the workshop expanded. Local businesses donated tools and materials. Volunteers offered time and expertise. The boys' story became a symbol, not just of wealth or privilege, but of resilience, humility, and community. At the same time, Jordan and Eli continued their studies, balancing schoolwork with their growing responsibilities. They faced new challenges, skepticism from some teachers, pressure to conform, and the constant struggle to stay true to themselves. One day, at a community event, Jordan gave a speech. His voice steady, his eyes bright, he shared their journey, honest and raw. "We were once just two boys who didn't belong in a luxury car dealership," he said. "We were judged by our clothes, our background, our silence. But with the love of a family and the power of a dream, we found a way to turn rejection into hope." The crowd erupted in applause. Not just for the cars or the money, but for the courage and heart behind the story. That night, as the workshop closed and the last lights dimmed, the boys sat on the porch again. Eli looked up at the stars. "Dad was right. We don't have to change everything at once." Jordan smiled, eyes reflecting the night sky. "We just have to keep moving forward." Their father joined them, wrapping an arm around each boy. "And when you do, you build something that lasts forever." The road ahead would still have hurdles, still have moments of doubt. But now, Jordan and Eli were ready. Not just with Rolls Royces and wealth, but with purpose, strength, and an unshakable belief in themselves. Because the greatest legacy isn't what you own, it's who you become, and who you help others become along the way. Months had passed since the boys' first visit to the dealership in their combat shorts and plain white t-shirts, and the world around them had shifted in ways they never imagined. Their lives were no longer just about youthful dreams or the shock of wealth. They were about legacy, leadership, and the tough road of growth. But growth isn't a straight path. It twists and turns, and sometimes The darkest shadows emerge just when you think you found the light. One evening, as the workshop buzzed with activity, Jordan received a message that shook him. A group of classmates had started a social media campaign mocking the boys. Memes, insults, and cruel comments spread like wildfire, questioning their motives and mocking their sudden wealth. The boys were used to judgment, but this felt different. It was public, loud, and meant to wound. Jordan shut his phone with a snap, anger and hurt bubbling beneath the surface. Eli saw the change instantly. "They don't get it, do they?" he said quietly. "They don't see who we really are." Jordan's voice trembled. Maybe they never will. Their father found them later that night, sitting together on the porch, faces illuminated by the soft glow of a single lamp. He sat beside them and spoke slowly, carefully. "The world can be cruel, yes. And sometimes people attack because they're afraid of change, of success, or of what they don't understand. But remember this, the greatest power comes not from the approval of others, but from your own truth." Jordan wiped a tear, then met his father's gaze. "How do we keep going when it feels like the world is against us?" His father smiled softly, "By remembering why you started. Not for fame or to prove anyone wrong, but because you believe in something bigger than yourself. Because you want to make a difference." That night, the boys made a choice to rise above the noise and focus on what truly mattered. The next day at the workshop, Jordan gathered the kids. "We've been through a lot," he said, "but we're here to build, to learn, to grow. And no one can take that away from us." The room erupted with cheers, a wave of determination washing over every young face. Amid the challenge, the boys found unexpected allies. Local news outlets caught wind of their story, not the memes, but the real journey of resilience. Interviews, articles, and heartfelt stories began to pour in. Their father's presence remained steady but humble, a quiet pillar of support. One afternoon, during an interview, Jordan was asked about the harsh criticism. He paused, then answered with surprising calm. "It's easy to judge from the outside, but real strength is built when you keep going, even when no one's watching." Eli added, "We're not perfect. We've made mistakes, but we're learning, and that's what matters." The response was overwhelming. Messages of encouragement flooded their social media, and the workshop's attendance grew even more. But beneath the rising success, the boys wrestled with their own insecurities. One evening, Jordan confessed, "Sometimes, I feel like I'm living two lives. One where people see the cars and money, and another where I'm just trying to figure out who I really am." Eli nodded. "Yeah, it's like the world expects us to be perfect because of where we come from now." Their father listened, then shared something he'd never told them before, a story from his own youth, when he was struggling with identity and acceptance. "I learned that your worth isn't tied to what you own or what others think of you. It's tied to how true you are to yourself, and the courage it takes to be that person every day." The boys felt a shift inside them, a release of pressure, a deepening of self-understanding. Meanwhile, the partnership with the dealership grew stronger. The once dismissive salesman became a mentor within the workshop, teaching not only mechanics but also the importance of respect and empathy. The dealership started hosting monthly open days, where kids from all backgrounds could come, learn about cars, and meet professionals who believed in second chances and new beginnings. One such day, Jordan watched as a shy girl carefully examined an engine, her eyes wide with wonder. He smiled, remembering how he and Eli had felt standing in the showroom months ago. "This," he thought, "is the real victory." As the workshop prepared for its first major fundraising gala, a night to celebrate their journey and raise money for scholarships, the boys felt the weight of everything they'd accomplished. The gala was elegant but heartfelt. Speeches were made, stories shared. The room filled with supporters who believed in the power of dreams and the promise of change. Jordan stood at the podium, his voice steady but passionate. "When we first walked into that dealership, we were just two kids with nothing but hope. We were kicked out, humiliated, and dismissed. But that moment didn't break us. It ignited something. A fire to prove that where you start doesn't define where you can go." Eli joined him, adding, "This isn't just our story. It's the story of every kid who's been told no, every dream deferred, every silent hope waiting to be heard." The crowd rose in applause. Tears glistened on faces young and old. Later that night, as the last guests departed and the lights dimmed, the boys stood outside, looking up at the stars. "We did it," Eli whispered. Jordan nodded. "Yeah, but this is just the beginning." Their father placed a hand on each shoulder. You've already changed more lives than you realize, including your own. Remember that. The road ahead was still uncertain, filled with challenges and unknowns. But Jordan and Eli knew one thing for sure: they had the strength to face whatever came next. Because sometimes, the greatest victories come not from the cars you drive, but the courage you carry. And theirs was limitless. The sun was setting over the city, casting a warm golden glow over the workshop, the place where everything had changed. Jordan and Eli stood side by side, watching as a new group of kids eagerly gathered around, ready to learn and dream. It was hard to believe how far they had come from that first day, walking into the dealership with nothing but hope and plain white t-shirts. They had been judged, dismissed, and pushed aside. But those moments of rejection had ignited a fire that now burned bright, not just in them, but in every young life they touched. Their father approached quietly, a proud smile on his face. "You've done something remarkable here, not just with cars or money, but with hearts." Jordan looked at him, eyes shining. "It wasn't easy. There were times I wanted to give up." Eli nodded. "But every challenge made us stronger." Their father placed a hand on each of their shoulders. "That strength is your true legacy, and it's only the beginning." The workshop buzzed with energy, a testament to dreams reclaimed and futures rebuilt. That evening, as the city lights twinkled, Jordan and Eli reflected on their journey. From being kicked out and humiliated to becoming beacons of hope, they had learned the most valuable lesson of all: success isn't measured by what you own, but by the lives you uplift. Jordan turned to Eli. "We started this to prove something to the world. But really, we had to prove it to ourselves." Eli smiled. "And now, we're ready to help others do the same." Their father looked on with quiet pride, knowing the greatest gift he had given his sons wasn't wealth or Rolls Royces, it was belief. Belief in themselves. Belief in kindness. Belief that no matter where you start, you can always choose who you become. As the brothers walked into the workshop, surrounded by laughter and hope, they knew one thing for certain: this was their home, their legacy, and their story was far from over.